Welcome to Center Stage, the documentary podcast. Each week, our group of intrepid researchers and music archivists dig through the record crates of the world, looking for that one artist to take center stage. Using a patent-pending algorithm and spirited debate, we pick one artist. Once that is settled, we invite that artist into Thunderlove Studio to chat with your hosts Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. When we're lucky, they say yes. Our mission with Center Stage is simple: to make sure the recorded work of artists remains, or in some cases lands on, the cultural radar. We invite you to sit back and relax. Thank you for joining us.
The artist wants you to know that you can never know. Never know the vast unreachable depths of their soul. The artist wants you to understand that you can never understand. Never understand what they're going through. These dark clouds are hanging over, they're blotting out the sun. Way too serious to have fun. Most folks can't be bothered with the search for meaning and truth. They don't have the luxury of that excuse. But the artist wants you to hear something you've never heard before. Never heard before, but it sounds like something you know.
We continue our deep dive into Sponge Bath Records on this episode with singer-songwriter Seth Timbs of Fluid Ounces and his consistently robust solo career. Without any further ado, here's our conversation with Seth Timbs. Well, Seth, welcome to Center Stage.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We have somehow become the de facto oral history for Sponge Bath Records.
Yeah, I listened to Jason's a few nights ago. Actually, I liked it.
And Matt was on. Funny story about Matt Mahaffey. He was the first episode that Jeff and I did together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I haven't listened to that. I will. I'm going to go back and dig in the archives. But so you've had Matt on, you had Jason on. Anybody else from
Bingham?
Oh, Bingham, great.
Yeah, got to talk a little Electric Python.
Yeah, I still do a bit of music as far as making a living at it, but not that much. You know what I mean?
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. You and Jeff actually go back. You know each other.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly.
I'll tell you exactly where. Once upon a time, there was a plucky upstart record label that had a fair number of appealing music acts, and I was a plucky young college student at the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
And I was running the campus radio station there, so we had
Lee and Wolf.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can't believe you remember that. They will be so tickled.
Well, I'm still, Lee Overstreet and I are still Facebook buddies. So we comment at each other still quite a bit.
Isn't life wonderful?
Yeah.
We comment at each other.
Yeah. So there was a
that's kind of how we communicate. I don't.
Indeed, yeah. There was I think it was a record release show for Self. It may have been Breakfast with Girls. I don't recall, but somehow or another we got invited, and the lead singer of my band and I drove up from Tuscaloosa to Nashville, ended up in Murfreesboro. And after a long evening of too much celebration and not enough sleep, a very kind Seth Timbs looked at two weary travelers in the corner and said, "Where are you guys sleeping tonight?" To which we responded, "We have no fucking clue, man." And you said, "Oh, come on, guys, I got you." And we ended up crashing on your floor that night. And then and the next day, the lead singer of my band called his job back in Tuscaloosa, who informed him that his choice to go to the concert and not work his shift that night led to his no longer being employed at that restaurant.
Yeah.
So
I've made similar choices before.
Haven't we all?
Yeah.
Haven't we all?
and zero regrets, by the way.
I quit my very first actual taxable job because they wouldn't let me off so that I could have a show. And I was asking 3 or 4 weeks in advance, and they're just like, "No, we can't do that. That's going to be a Friday night. We need you." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to be here." So I thought I was giving you plenty of warning, but I'm not going to be here, And they're like, "Well, either you show up or you don't have a job." I'm like, "Well, I guess I don't have a job in 2 weeks then, or whatever, So, that was an easy, keep my Hardy's job or have a gig, have your first, sort of like my first real gig at a I wouldn't say a club, but a place that an adult an adult gig, not like a high school garage type of a situation or whatever, playing a party, but an actual place that booked you and put your name on the marquee and all that. So it's like, fuck Hardy's, man.
I can still say that today with great pride. Fuck Hardy's.
Hardy's.
It's like the opposite of having a sponsor. We've had some episodes where this episode not brought to you by Hardy's. Fuck them.
Where we alienate potential sponsors.
That's right. fuck them biscuits.
How with you, Squarespace? Who I don't know, whoever does podcasts, it's always Squarespace or Blue Apron or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Or one of those ball trimmers, right?
Oh, yeah. Manscaped.
Right.
Ball trimmer.
Hey, let's talk about some music, Seth.
Yeah.
Let's get off of this shit. Yeah, go ahead.
So I mentioned that I knew you from the campus radio station. We sure did play Big Notebook for Easy Piano a lot.
Yay. Thank you.
And I'm wondering if you can take me back to the opening track from that album, Shamrock.
Yeah.
off your back. There will be no need for you to pack belongings. There'll be no need for you to tidy up the place. There is no need for me at all this morning. All the left long day. Don't eat, don't sleep, don't grow too green. Too soon the winter will wrinkle your leaves. It's making me crazy.
I still like that one. That's one that I think has aged pretty well, actually. What do you want to know about it? I like it. I still take it.
Me too. It's I think so what strikes me is I've listened to both Fluid Ounces and your self-titled or solo records, I guess we'd call them. Mm-hmm. There's not a huge change over the decades, really, in your approach to songwriting, in your approach to the music. You're remarkably consistent. And I think Shamrock, if you had to choose an entry point into your catalog, I think that's as fine a first song to introduce somebody to this is what Seth Timbs sounds like as any.
I like it, but I was kind of just thinking when I was talking about it a second ago, like it is sort of it is quite an impenetrable sort of opening thing. You know, it changes. It has several different moods. It's quirky as it can be, and you know, and then it has this big Gershwin-y kind of part in the middle with, you know, the da 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 blah blah. I don't know. It's given a lot of different textures, and I'm not sure from a marketing standpoint that's such a great idea. But you know, maybe it's better to come out of the box with something a little more, you know, that tells them where I'm coming from or where we were coming from. But I don't think we really knew where we were coming from either. We were sort of, there was a lot of stuff happening, and you know, we were ambitious, overly so, I think sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we wanted to be the latter day Beatles and XTC and Jellyfish and et cetera, Supertramp and
Whoa. Supertramp?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah. All of that, you know, and that's, you know, that's ambitious pop stuff is what we were really into. I'm still into it, but I think I've tamed down the ambition of like, we've got to throw everything but the kitchen sink into this song, and which we did a lot of in Fluid Ounces, I think. Or I did a lot of it, maybe. I mean, I wrote almost all of it, so I guess it's my fault. But the guys they were down with it. They were accessories to the crime.
Brian was a willing participant.
Willing cohorts for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about Sponge Bath Records. I mean, if we were to do a Sponge Bath Records oral history, and you had to one quote, what's your one-liner about your experience with the label?
Oh man, well, it's dichotomous for sure, because obviously I really loved all the other bands that were, well, what I considered the bands that were really on it. Sorry, I just hit my microphone stand. You might have heard that while gesturing. I mean, we had such a great roster. I remember in maybe 97, 98, you know, Matt and I kind of having a kind of congratulatory evening amongst ourselves, drinking too many beers and so forth, and sort of looking at the roster that we felt like we had compiled, sort of, because we, you know, like ostensibly it started out with Matt and I and Rick Williams being sort of the business guy. And Matt and I were going to not only provide our own projects, being Self and Fluid Ounces, which I think we didn't even have the names of at the time. We were just like, okay, because Matt was in Element Opie, which was sort of my band mostly, although we were starting to do some of his songs. And then, you know, Rick was like, you guys have got to, you know, you've got to have separate bands. Like, not that we weren't getting along or anything, but he was just like, you know, you've got your thing, and Matt's got all this other stuff. And I was just like, well, I don't want to lose the drummer, you know, because Matt was like the best drummer around, and we had poached him effectively from another band. But anyway, I'm getting off the train of thought. But so we were sensibly going to be like, okay, Rick is sort of the business side of it, and Matt and I are the creative side of it, or the beginnings of the creative side of it. And so we already had thought, like, you know, well, I was loving the features. I'm like, I want to, you know, I got to get Rick to listen to these guys, the features. I think they're great. And, you know, and we had like Count Bass D and the Wings, and we had, the Cadies that weren't called the Cadies yet, but we were already, you know, they were A Million Worlds or whatever. They had several names before the Cadies, and they weren't, as I think Jason went over, like, they weren't the three-piece Cadies. They were, sometimes I was playing with them, and sometimes Sam was playing with them. And so they were trying to figure it out. Like, they were trying different permutations of that, of whatever, Jason's songs, basically. But anyway, we ended up, by like 97 or so, one night Matt and I were sitting around and we were like, this is fucking, like, we were kind of going through the trade magazines and stuff, and we were like, by that time Sponge Bath had an office on the square, and we were like established. All of a sudden we were a respectable thing. We had some money, and the label did anyway. I didn't. Matt had some money, but the label had money to work with, and we were working on records, or Matt had already had it. Well, I guess by that time Big Notebook had come out. And anyway, the point is, we were sort of looking at the roster, and we're like, okay, look at this. We had the main sort of 5 acts for like Self, Fluid Ounces, the Features, the Cadies, and Count Bass D. We're like, that's just, all of those are good. Even though we were tooting our own horns by saying that a little bit, we're like, everybody in that list is fucking good. And we were sort of looking at the trade magazines, and we're like, there's no other indie label, and in our opinion, and we were obviously maybe biased, but we were just looking, we're like, nobody else has, like, Minty Fresh was pretty good, Matador was pretty good. There were a few labels that we really liked, but nobody, in our view, had just like, well, this is like a sterling lineup. Like, there's not really any rotten apples in this basket. Like, everybody is good. Legit good. And we all had, very friendly competitions. Like, it was a good time there for a few years where just everyone was sort of one-upping everyone else, and you'd go to see Self and you'd be like, holy shit, we've got to fucking get our shit together. And you go to see and maybe then we would play with the Features, and the Features would be like, oh, we got to get our shit together. And then the next, and 2 months later, it was like the Features were eating our lunch, so it was a great time. Those few years were really, really good. Like halcyon days, as they say, because we just there was a lot of good talent. Everybody was putting out good stuff, and everyone was friendly yet competitive, in the best way. So I love all that about it. I'll always miss that, I think. I didn't end up having I don't think anyone ended up having a very good relationship with Rick, but we don't want to really dredge that pool, like, that's just kind of ends up being a bunch of shit talking, I think. So,
well, I think that's the counterpoint to all the good times, is there's a reason it ended, and there seems to be, anytime the end of Sponge Bath Records gets brought up, people make a frowny face.
Yeah. And I think that, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think that particular individual was more or less the reason that most of the bands left, or, they ended up he was sort of micromanaging the whole thing, and everyone ended up eventually, one after another, like having enough of him and saying like, well, we're done with you. And then that was the end of that. But I think, there for a while, I think we really did sort of have the best roster, especially from an indie label, that there was at that time. It was like really quite good, I thought,
I remember looking forward to getting the Sponge Bath sampler, because you knew you were going to be exposed to, you weren't listening to it for the 1 or 2 good tracks. You were listening to it to enjoy the whole thing.
Yeah, well, we hope so. And then those would also include like like there might be a glossary track on there, or there might be, these tracks or Call Florence Powell, which was a band that Matt worked with, who were really good. Anyway, you would see like we were trying to give little glimpses of like, well, these guys, they might be the next album, or,
Yeah.
The people waiting in the wings, as it were.
Right.
And we had a lot of good ones waiting in the wings, I felt like, those two included that I just mentioned. But
Man, that Call Florence Powell record. It's so funny you mentioned that. I emailed Matt today. I said, I can't find Brian or David online anywhere. We would love to talk to those guys. Do you have their email address? So yeah, if you're listening, Call Florence Powell, hit us up.
I never really, that they were I met them when they were doing their record and when they were working with Matt, but I didn't really ever know them. He was their guy, and he was the one that, I think they came down to record and be on the label just because they were such big Matt fans. They kind of reached out to him. I may be getting this wrong, but I think, as I recall, yeah, he was just like, yeah, these guys are just bombarding me with stuff, and it's really, really good. Like they're sending me all this stuff and sort of being like, work with us, do our record. So he did, and it is great. I haven't listened to it in a long time. I should dig that one out. That's a fine record.
Indeed.
Seth, if I'm to believe the internet, and I believe everything that I read on the internet,
You should.
yes, it claims that you named the label. Is that correct? Sponge Bath?
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
I don't know that it's a great one. I think it was a joke. It was more or less a joke or a bad analogy. I said, well, someone should call, there should be a label called Sponge Bath Records, because I felt like, a lot of labels treated art, or I don't know, there was something going on in the industry at the time. And I'm like, yeah, they're treating artists like, people in an old folks home, like they're giving them just what they need and nothing more. And they're stealing money from artists, and they're just kind of like giving them their meds and giving them their sponge bath and sending them off to bed. And it's like, and it was not a good analogy, and it doesn't make much sense. But then the next thing I know, Rick loved it for some reason, which was weird that he would like any idea of mine. But then he also, I think, stole it from me, because I think, he was like, I like that. We're going to trademark that. And he did, he just like, then all of a sudden it's like, it's his, But anyway.
Wow.
It's not a great story, because I don't know. People like the name, but I was always kind of like, well, that was just some kind of an offhanded, stupid, probably half drunken comment that I made. And again, an imperfect analogy to the music industry and an old folks home. But you know what I mean? Assisted living. But that's it. That's not a good story. That's the story I got.
Hey, I'll take it. Thank you.
I never thought it was all that great, but anyway, it worked for some reason. It caught on weirdly.
Seth, you talked about marketing in reference to the fluid ounces. So sometimes when you read these blurbs online, because again, like Keith, I believe everything I read online. Sometimes when you read a band summary, it's written by the band, and sometimes it's written by someone from the press or a fan. So I'm curious to read something to you and see if this came from you or an external source.
Okay.
They said the Tennessee-based pop quartet Fluid Ounces never escaped the shadow of Ben Folds 5 during their short lifespan. But the two groups share only prominent piano Southern roots and an affinity for 70s pop. Unlike Folds' strained look-at-me cleverness, Ivory's tickling leader Seth Timbs doesn't draw too much attention to himself lyrically. I don't think that you would describe yourself as Ivory's tickling leader, but
I didn't write that, and none of us did. I think that was Jim Ridley of the Nashville scene who wrote that, or someone from the Nashville scene, maybe Tracy Moore. It was one of the scene writers. I remember reading that, and I remember we used it there for a little while, sort of as our blurb, or we used excerpts from it. I hate writing bios. Myself, it's just the worst. So I always get someone else to do it, or I just poach whatever I want from what few pieces of press there might be available.
Tell me about escaping the shadow of Ben Folds 5, because I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
I don't know. It was I don't have anything against Ben Folds 5. I like Ben Folds 5 just fine. But we did, I wasn't bitter about them. I ended up being a little bit bitter that our Big Notebook, the first record, got put out, like a year late, it just kept getting pushed back. And, so that is, is always frustrating, but, I kept thinking like someone's going to beat us to the punch. Like I just had this feeling like, and Rick and Rory and some of the other people at the label were like, no, we're not, no one's going to, no one's playing piano except Tori Amos or whatever. Like you're not going to get beaten to the punch. I'm like, I just had this bad feeling. And then I remember my friend Brian Botcher one day says like, you got to hear this Ben Folds guy. And I knew who Ben Folds. I was like, wait a minute, I know Ben Folds because he was a drummer actually in a band called Jody's Power Bill, which was a Nashville band that I thought was great from like the early 90s. And I'm like, I know Ben. I think I know who that is. Anyway, he's like, listen to these guys. They're out of Chapel Hill, and he puts the record on, and I'm like, fuck. This is good. These guys are going to be, they're the only, I just knew it. I'm like, there's not room in this world for two piano bands. It's not we don't live in a Elton John, Billy Joel world anymore. I just knew it. And I actually took the CD and went up to Sponge Bath and like stormed into Rick's office and slammed it down on his desk. And I'm like, that's fucking why we should have come out 9 months ago, because like this is out now and it's really good. And they're going to hit, everyone's going to compare us to them, which they did. And even though it's, I never thought we sounded particularly like them. As the article says, there's a piano in it. And yeah, I mean, we obviously, Ben and I, well, he's a little bit older than me, but we grew up listening to the same stuff, Elton John and piano-based 70s pop stuff.
Hey, Seth?
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you, but your audio has gotten markedly worse.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Like, lots of static.
Get closer.
There you go.
Oh, that's much nicer.
Hello. Is
Hello.
That good? Too much?
No.
Okay.
That's great.
You sound great.
Okay. So where was I? I was talking about.
Let's back up to you.
Beat us to the punch.
They beat us to the punch, and you were about to tell us about taking the Ben Folds CD into Rick's office.
Oh, right. Yeah, I kind of hot-headedly slammed it down on his desk after I heard it and said, this is why we should have been out 9 months ago or a year ago, because these guys are out now. And, and I just knew we're just going to get forever compared to these guys. And Rick, of course, was like, no, you're not. You're totally different. I'm like, yeah, but they're not going to see it that way. I just knew. I'm like, we're living in a world where there can be 18,000 bands that are two guitars, bass, and drums, but as soon as you have a piano-based band, there's only room for one. And I was kind of borne out in a lot of ways because we got rejected by major labels because they were like, we don't really need another Ben Folds. Like they really thought that was, okay, well that market's all full up, So we got that a lot. And we also got a lot that they would have signed us if I would have been a girl, because they were like, when it came to piano stuff, like, yeah, we're looking for, Tori Amos's and Fiona Apple's and Nora Jones's, I guess, and that sort of stuff. And, I literally got that comment. I'm not trying to claim sexism was the cause.
Oh, sure.
You know,
Yeah.
reverse. Yeah. Anyway, but we did hear that. We did hear that sometimes. That's true. So
Okay.
that is what it is.
Jane, what can you tell me about this man you saw last night?
He's Caucasian.
Caucasian?
Yeah, a white guy. With a mustache, about 6'3".
An awfully big mustache.
I want to lean into from the album Instant Nostalgia. The opening track on that album, Millionaire, seems terribly prescient.
Money is the only object, and everything springs from it. Money is the only object, and everything springs from it. Millionaire meets millionaire, and they're gonna get together and make a little billionaire. Millionaire meets millionaire, and they're gonna make it together and keep themselves in business. Luck is the only logic. Not everyone gets lucky.
I don't know that I want to open the floor to politics, but in terms of billionaires just being really kind of shitty people in our modern environment, take me back to the song Millionaire.
Oh man, I like that one too. Wow, what do I? It's kind of self-explanatory. Yeah, I mean, it's just an indictment of ludicrous wealth and the pursuit thereof, and the continued pursuit thereof after you get it. That's what always flabbergasts me, is like people that are insanely wealthy and yet they want, I mean, that's just greed. That's just bald-faced greed. But, it blows my mind how, and then they're mean to people. It's like I heard, I think it was Bill Burr the other day say, like, I don't know why someone would have $1 billion and then decide to be mean to people. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like,
Yeah.
What chip could you possibly have on your shoulder at this point? Like, it seems like the world's done pretty well by you, like, why wouldn't you then? You've got way more than you ever need, and why wouldn't you want to sort of help people and do things, and you'd still have more money than God, like, I don't get that, and I never have. So, Millionaire is just that, and it, and it's an indictment. It's trying to be funny in the midst of it being an indictment. But, 2 millionaires get married, like, that's just sort of the continuation of what am I trying to say? Like, the hoi polloi only marrying their own kind and that sort of thing. Like,
That is a phrase not kicked around often enough, the hoi polloi.
Yeah, I was thinking more of like, no, I should have. That's not exactly what I more meant, like sort of the nobility or the aristocratic class. But I guess hoi polloi sounds that's not really aristocrat. That sounds more like Tony nightclub people or something. Hoi polloi. But what I meant to say was aristocracy, basically.
Aristocracy.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I sure do.
that above all else, they seek to self-perpetuate the accumulation of wealth is so messed up.
It is. It is to me. I just don't know, I don't know why you want it. Like, what do you do with it?
I never thought about it that way either. For somebody that has every luxury, every comfort, every convenience, what possibly could motivate you to be a dick?
I don't know. And I wish, again, I think it was Bill Burr that said that. It certainly wasn't me, but, and I don't go in for everything Bill Burr says, but he is pretty funny a lot of the time. And, And I think he's right. I was, as soon as he said that, I'm like, yes, that's very well said. Why would you? It's not just why would you want to accumulate more money? That doesn't make any sense either to me after a certain point, because it's just kind of meaningless. But also, like, why would you want to be mean to people? Like, and have why would you have this mean streak and like this jaded, bitter, rotten kind of? I mean, it's like it turns everybody into Scrooge, and they're all humbuggy and they all feel like they've been taken advantage of somehow,
Yeah, right.
And we're seeing that like on steroids right now. Obviously, again, maybe we're steering too far into politics, but man, those motherfuckers are running the boat right now, and they're running it into the rocks.
They sure are. Get no quarrel from me on that, sir.
Yeah, well, I think that's just the foregone conclusion. I think that's beyond politics. That's going to be a numbers game eventually. We're going to see that this guy that got himself into office, or we put in office, or however you want to look at it, has always been a failure and will continue to be a failure. 6 bankruptcies. Will America be the 7th? He's working on it.
Sure going to try his hardest.
Yeah, well, he's done, the idea, anyone's having an idea that he's a good businessman. I'm like, what is the evidence of that? There's never been any evidence of that. But again, we're getting off of music.
Let's
steer it back.
I have the perfect thing.
You got me on it with the millionaire thing. Yeah.
Let's talk about my favorite topic, hand jobs.
Oh yeah,
great.
The good old fashioned.
Yeah,
I know.
Seth, on your record and pause, there is a song called "Church Fan."
Pause, right? Yeah.
Yeah. As I listened to that song, I thought, oh my God, did I tell him this story like back in the day and he's turned it into a song? Or do lots of young men?
Did you have a similar experience, my friend?
I got my very first handy in the backseat of a church van.
Yes. Oh man, we got to get together and go bowling, man. That's great. That's great.
That night she made me a man in the back of the church van, under a blanket, driving home in the dark, everyone asleep or so we thought. When we pulled back into town, well, I knew she would let me down. She barely looked back at me, just started talking to Katie, and that was all we ever had.
Yeah, that was on the way home from Wave Country, or the Wave Pool, as everyone used to say. It's actually right down the street from where I live now. Yeah, in the church van. That's true. I mean, that's just a true statement that I wrote down, and again, almost jokingly, that night she made me a man in the back of the church van. I said, well, that's bawdy and irreverent at the same time, and I'm gonna just have to go with that. I'm just gonna have, I thought, well, maybe I should change that, and I'm like, why bother? That's good. That's what happened, sort of. I don't know about the made me a man part, but that's sort of old vernacular for,
Yeah.
Now I know the touch of a woman You know? So, you know.
Keith, I'm sorry if you feel left out of the club that Seth and I have just started.
The church fan? No,
Yeah.
mine wasn't a church fan, but
No.
no, it was a church associated event, but it was in.
Well,
It was not a band. What's going on with churches and physical touching? I mean,
Praise the Lord.
Well, there's a element, you know, there's repression going on there. There's elements of forbidden fruit that are tantalizing, you know, and in the midst, doing it sort of in the midst of the, you know, stealing a sheep from the flock, you know, doing it right in the midst of the, you're just inches away from the youth minister, you know, feet away, just a couple of bench seats away from the youth minister, the youth pastor, or the music director, or whatever chaperone went with you to the wave pool that day. And that's thrilling. That's thrilling. Excuse me for a second, Faz.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I need a moment to myself after these thoughts.
Yeah. Grab some Kleenex.
Yeah, I just want to, something.
You know, so Seth, having been friends with you on
to that is like a real boomerang, you know.
It truly. I know that you and I both have young daughters roughly the same age, and if either of you are listening to this episode, sorry about that.
Oh yeah. Mine won't be, I guarantee you. Even if I say, hey, I'm on a podcast, they'll be like, oh, great. Yeah, they're none. It's not you, it's me. They're not interested. I promise.
I love it. Oh, great, Dad! You're on a podcast. Great.
What do you think? You're cool now?
Yeah. I mean, every once in a while here locally, I'll still get a little bit of, you know, play on one of the two sort of alternative stations that we have in town, and somebody, you know, one of either of my daughter's high school friends will happen to hear it and be like, I think I heard your dad on a 100, you know, and then they'll mention that to me, like they kind of felt cool for a second because of me, and that's heartening. That's nice, you know.
That is. It's sweet.
Yeah, but that's as far as they'll go. They're not interested. They're not interested in my past or current musical endeavors, really. Not that I can tell, anyway. So,
well, they should be.
Well, they're teenage girls, you know. They're living in their own world.
Are you able to influence their taste in what they do get interested in?
I never really tried to push any particular kind of music on them. I mean, maybe when they were really little and they kind of don't have a choice but to listen to whatever you put on, you know, and obviously, you know, you try to feed them the Beatles and Stevie Wonder and all the big sort of undeniably great things. And they like all that stuff, I suppose, but they're like of their generation, you know, they like Billie Eilish and Chappell Roan and Taylor Swift and Sabrina Carpenter and all that, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
My older one is a little more eclectic than that, and she's actually turned me on to a few different things, that artists that I didn't know about, newer artists that are not just in the uber pop realm that I was just quoting the artists of. Although I don't have any problem with those, I think Sabrina Carpenter's fine. I don't. I like uber pop stuff. Anyway, yeah, I've never really tried to urge them to be into a particular kind of music. I'm not that way. and they both sort of dabbled in music a little bit, but I don't think they're interested. Either one of them are interested in like pursuing it. You know, my oldest daughter is really she reads constantly. She's really into books. She wants to go into like the publishing world. She loves that. Okay. And my younger daughter is got the theater bug. She's acting and stuff all the time. So she's in a lot of not just school productions, but some extracurricular stuff as well, some independent stuff in town. So she's really good, if I do say so myself. Anyway, but no, they're good. They're musically talented, but I don't think they're going to pursue it, at least not right now, which is fine.
Yeah.
You released records with a band with the Fluid Ounces for many, many years, all the way up, I think, until 2006. And then you started releasing music under the name Seth Timbs. What, if any, was that? And I'm playing a little inside baseball here because I'm going to name one of your solo records titles. What was that line of demarcation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I probably could have just gone into my own name earlier. I mean, literally the last, well, I guess Instant Nostalgia, I guess, was the last Fluid Ounces record, right? Was that the last one?
I think so, yeah.
The last one. Now, that was a band record, but I mean, you know, where all of us were involved, including, but the only two original members were me and Brian Rogers. We had a different, Ben was in the Army by then, and we had a different drummer. So that was a real band record. But the previous record, which I guess was Whole Shebang, I mean, that's mostly me. That's like me and various drummers, you know. It's still called a Fluid Ounces record because I ostensibly wrote all those songs as Fluid Ounces songs, and I thought of it that way. But I mean, I didn't really have a band, and I did it when I wrote most of it when I was living in California, where I was doing fuck all as far as music was concerned. I didn't do any music out there. Like, it was a total waste of time as far as that was concerned. So, and I came back for like 2 weeks to record with my buddy Brian Carter, and you know, I had some drummers lined up, but I didn't, for various reasons, I didn't have a band. So I played, so I ended up playing everything except for the drums. I even played drums on a track, but you know, all the guitars, bass, keys, obviously, but you know, and all the everything was me. So, well, I guess what I'm getting at is I probably could have gone earlier. I probably could have cut off Fluid Ounces earlier. You know, because it kind of wasn't Fluid Ounces, you know. After the first two records, there was, yeah, it was pretty much me anyway, predominantly. So that was the reason, I guess. I was just kind of like, why am I masquerading as a band when I'm not really a band anymore? You know, so.
Well, you referenced Whole Shebang. Let me ask you about the final track, which is something, in addition to having slept on your floor and having a church van in common, we also both have worked with Kelly Scott. Kelly Scott from the band Failure played drums on Destined to Be Forgotten.
Yes.
Because the dry land is a sea of islands. Drink up the rock and dirt beneath you. The time we spend here, we breathe the thin air.
sun beats down. One of my favorite tracks, and Mahaffey produced that one. That was kind of owe that song "Ever Seen the Light of Day" to Matt, because when I was living in, that was actually, I said I did fuck all the music out there, but I did record a couple things, that being one of them. And Matt one day was just said like, I had made a demo of Destined to Be Forgotten, like maybe a couple years before that, and he had always liked it. And then one day he just said like, we're going to do Destined to Be Forgotten this weekend. I think it was one of those weekends where he's like, his wife and my wife and so the girls, the ladies were all going on some kind of ladies weekend or whatever. And so like, okay, the guys are, and he's like, well, let's just record something this weekend. I'm like, okay, great. He's like, we're going to do Destined to Be Forgotten. And that's the end of it. I'm like, you want to do Destined to Be Forgotten? I'm like, it's pretty dismal. It's kind of the title says it all. It's like kind of a dismal song. He's like, no, I love it. I think it's great. I want to do it. And so then we started recording it, and Kelly Scott was just kind of coming around a lot. Him and Matt were palling around, and Matt and Ken from Failure were palling around a lot, and then Kelly was just over there, and I think Matt had obviously I wasn't playing the drums, not with Matt around, so I think Matt had cut a part, but he wasn't really crazy about it. And then Kelly was just like, well, let me have a shot at it. And I was tickled because I loved Failure. I was like, really? I don't have any money to pay you. He's like, I just want to play. I like this track, and he went down and he just nailed it. I think he did it pretty much in one take. I think we pretty much took most of, I think he wanted to do something a little bit different at the very end, so we punched him in, but it was more or less one take. He just killed it, and he had a different flavor than what Matt was doing, and Matt loved it. He's like, that's it. That's the drum take. We're not fucking with that. I'm like, that's perfect. We shouldn't, Yeah. And then Mac Burris played bass on it. He put a really cool bass part down on that song from Self, and he was living out there by then. And the rest is me and Matt. I can't remember who did what, but on the keys and guitars and vocals. Obviously, I'm lead vocal, but there's definitely some Mahaffey backgrounds in there as well, or the two of us singing together. But anyway,
it's what a song. what a cut.
Well, thanks,
you go all the way back to LMNOP and going to school together. As you look through the Fluid Ounces and the Seth Timbs records, there's always mixed by or mastered by. You and Mahaffey have been close friends for a really long time.
Yeah, we have. I think I met him in, I want to say 92, but I didn't we didn't become friends. I remember the very moment we became friends was shortly thereafter, after Carter and I's successful acoustic tete-a-tete thing. He was like, well, come up to, he's like, I've got this band, 1492, and Mahaffey's in it, and Jeffers is playing bass, and we've kind of got a following up in the Tri-Cities. Like, you should come up, your band, which at the time I had a band called the Mad Hatters, which is a terrible name, but anyway. It's not, anyway. So he was like, well, the Mad Hatters should come up and play with 1492 in Johnson City. And we always draw a good crowd, and you can stay up there, and you've got couches to sleep on and everything. It'll be fun. So you're like, well, fuck yeah. We hadn't really gone out of it, played anything except Murfreesboro and Nashville, so we were kind of tickled to do that. And we drive up there, and I remember pulling into the parking lot to load in the parking lot of this bar, and I pull right up next to Mahaffey, who's already there taking his drums out of his truck. And I've got music blaring, and what I've got playing in the car is a Prince bootleg called Charade, which was like the outtakes from Parade, which was the soundtrack to Under the Cherry Moon, which is an amazing soundtrack and an absolutely shit movie, but it's an amazing. Yeah, it's a remarkable piece of shit. It's like a piece of shit. It's a Mystery Science Theater. It's a Mystery Science Theater 3000 level like thing to watch. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of how does it get made kind of movie, and so it's kind of great in that way, but it's really terrible. And the soundtrack though is amazing. It's like my favorite Prince album. But anyway, I'm playing this bootleg. So it's some obscure, never released Prince track, probably badly reproduced onto a cassette, and I pull up, and Matt knows what it is. He immediately like hears it, and I see him turn around and look, and kind of, narrow his eyes and like scrunch his forehead, and he's like, "That's an outtake song from Parade," and I'm like, "How do you know that?" And he's like, "How do you know that?" And it was one of those like, we were both purveyors of the secret knowledge or whatever. We were both Prince aficionados. So then immediately we're just talking shop. We're just talking shop, and we're immediately starting to like, oh, do you have this bootleg? Do you have this one? Oh, I don't have that one. Oh, you don't have that one. Like we started doing all that shit, and then we became friends. And then that night, I hadn't heard him drum. I'd never heard him drum, but I'm like, oh, that guy's cool, and he really knows a lot about Prince, and I dig that. And then I heard him drum that night, and the drummer that we had at the time, and I should say Brian Rogers, who was later the Fluid Ounces guitar player, was also the good. He had always been with me, like since we known each other since high school. So he was also the guitar player in Mad Hatters, and we opened for 1492, obviously because they were the local band. We played, crowd loved us. We get off, 1492 gets on, and I was about to say was our drummer at the time was a really nice guy. He wasn't that great of a drummer, honestly. I mean, he was not awful, but he just wasn't great. Sorry, Rodney. He'll never hear this. But anyway, he wasn't great. And the thing is, it's an axiom that if your drummer sucks, your band sucks. You just can't get over not having a great drummer, or at least a good drummer, and he was just an okay drummer. So when Carter's band started, when 1492 started, immediately, first song, I remember looking over at Brian, and Brian looking at me at the same time, and we're like, we got to steal that guy. Like, talking about Mahaffey. Within just a couple of songs, we're like, oh my God, like, that guy's great. He was just so good. He was so good. He had such a feel, and I'm stealing him. I'm stealing that guy. And I really was thinking like, I'm going to ruin a friendship with Carter that I just started. I'm going to like alienate, speaking of alienating again, like this guy, because I am totally going after his drummer, it turned out I didn't have to do much wooing because Matt already liked what we were doing. And he was already, he also could see that our drummer wasn't all that. He knew he was way better, and I think he was already sort of salivating, like, oh, those guys could sound really good if they had a good drummer like me, or whatever. And he was right. He was right. And so then we got him, and then we also changed out our bass player because our bass player was also a little bit meh. And we got this guy, Gary Miller, who was the best bass player in Murfreesboro. He was really, really good. Just really good. And then that was it. And then we changed the name because Mad Hatters was a shitty name, and we had a slightly less shitty name, but it was still Too Cute by Half, which was Ella Minopy, ELLAMINOPY, like it's a woman's name or something. Which is only marginally better than Mad Hatters. But anyway, we had a much better sound. We were a infinitely better band than the previous incarnation because suddenly we had a great rhythm section. We had a drummer who was fantastic. We had a bass player that was fantastic. So, we weren't constantly fighting against that handicap. I mean, if that's like I said, just a deal breaker, you know, like if you don't have a good locked in rhythm section, you might as well forget it, you know?
Now, one of the things that Jason shared with us when we had the Cadies on, he talked about booty hoop.
Oh boy.
And I wonder if you were a part of that booty hoop crew.
Yes, I was. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, but between booty hoop and then through
things on booty hoop that would probably get us all canceled and exiled from society today. But you know, it was. I don't think people don't really hear. You know, whatever ironic misogynism that doesn't play now. That doesn't play as a joke anymore. Like, you know, the sort of portrayal is not condonement argument doesn't seem to go very far. But yeah, I mean, we were aping just, you know, the worst behaving rappers that we could think of. You know, which was a thing. I mean, it's always been a bit of a trope since, but you know, this was like the age of like Master P, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was after, you know, well after Luke Skywalker and that sort of stuff. But like Master P and the whole whatever, I can't remember what his record label was called, but they were all like the covers were all really gaudy. It'd always be like Master P or whatever rapper, and he would be like, you know, it'd be like this bad computer generated image of him like on a solid gold M1 Abrams tank or something like that, or you know what I mean, like diamond studded artillery piece or something like that, you know, or like, you know what I mean, with just like the craziest shit happening in the background, you know, dolphins flying around, and it was. I mean, you just look at some of those old, like the old Master P albums, and his whole, what was it? Was it No Limit? Was that his record? Anyway, they were all just like, they look like they were just made by like a high super, which they might have been like a high kid in a dorm room who's making an image, you know, on a Adobe image, composite image, and he's just throwing everything that he can in there. And Master P paid him like $150. He was like, "That's great. That's perfect. You know, solid gold tank. I love it. You know, like." And so anyway, Booty Hoop was a response to that ethos of just sort of, you know, these fly in your face, just ultra misogynist, ultra. You know, fake millionaire kind of, I don't know, all that shit. It was just hilarious to us. And we kind of, you know, we loved it sort of in a way. You know what I mean? It was,
yeah. Now, not to go too far into the self lore, but were you around and a contributing factor to the Hell Glass thing?
Yes. Oh, I mean, I'm in the video, as you've maybe seen. It's only video.
Yeah. Yeah.
That also was like just there was some reason that for, you know, it was like a night that Matt and I were going to hang out, and I went over there, and he's like, I've got this. He was like, we need to. I can't remember what was the impetus for it, but he was basically just said like, kind of like with the Destined to Be Forgotten thing, he was just like, we're going to do this tonight. He already had it figured out. Like we did it that night. One of his buddies came over to film it. And he's like, we're just going to make, I mean, you know, he wanted to make like it owed a lot to like Christopher Guest and to like, you know, the Best in Show type of, Waiting for Guffman type of ethos. We're like, we're not going to script this out. We're just going to kind of, you know, Matt was like, I'm going to play the part of this whacked out space cadet artist, sort of, you know, that's got this stupid idea for this stupid song, you know, and you're going to be tolerating me / eventually you're going to lose it and tell me that I'm full of shit or whatever, you know, like, And so we're going to go from there to there. And I'm like, okay, great, I'm down. But so it was pretty much Matt's idea. But then we had a starting point and an ending point, and that was it, you know. And as far as the song, like, I don't think I had much to do with the song except that, you know, the nonsensical lyrics. I think he had like one verse, and we ended up writing like 5 or 6 verses of just like, you know, sweet and salty Mexicans come trickling through the hell glass while sugar little companions. You know, it was just like we were just doing this Bob Dylan, Allen Ginsberg bullshit riffy, you know, stuff, and we came up with a bunch of stanzas. And there's only a couple of them maybe are on the video. I don't know if there was ever like an actual recording of that dumbass song. You know, at least not one that ever saw the light of day.
I mean, if I know about it, it's got to be out there.
Well, those selfie kids, they'll archive or unarchive this stuff. They're really it's crazy.
Hell Glass.
Hell Glass take 48.
Sweet and naughty perversions of you shine through the hell glass, effortlessly subsidizing neighbors in your spine. Multi-millionaires eat crumb cakes through the hell glass. A trembling Virginia steals fruit bats for her wine.
Do you think it should be, while trembling Virginia steals fruit bats for her wine? Or do you think it should be, Virginia's thoughts grow putrid over time? I mean, like, that's just the last line.
Well, I think they're both equally terrible.
I'm struck by the fact that by your consistency. You know, it seems like you're good for a full length every 2 or 3 years. Last year you had a single. So my question here is the artist being your most recent release, is that leading up to a full length? Is that a part of a larger body of work?
I mean, it won't be on the next record. That's just a single on its own, but I am working on a new one that I hope to have done by September or so, like done and out. It's in the works right now. I don't know why, but I'm doing it. No, I quickly, you know, reached. I don't have. I classically haven't really had, especially with my own solo records, I haven't had anyone to really help me promote it, and so I feel like I do them, and I have maybe a few hundred or 1,000 people that know my stuff and will always buy it. But then, and I can get it on local radio, but then it's like, well, I'm done. Like, I don't know where to go from there. You know, like I don't have any skill or contacts to like promote it any further, really, you know? So I don't know, this one might end up coming to a similar fate of me just sort of putting it out. And again, I'm not trying to disparage I don't have enough fans, but I probably don't have enough fans because I'm a terrible self-promoter. I just suck at it, you know? So actually I have a friend of mine, she's sort of attempting to help me get my shit together in that regard. So I may have some more help with this one, hopefully, to actually get it promoted a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I mostly don't know I don't even know what to say about, you know, I don't know how to answer the first question that most people will have, which is like, what's it like? You know, like what kind of music is it? What does it sound like? Like, who does it sound like? I don't know. It doesn't really sound like anybody exactly. I just don't know. I never know what to say. I don't
make it up. Everyone makes it up.
indie rock. It's not. I don't
Yeah.
want to say singer songwriter. That sounds really kind of douchey and wussy type of. I don't know. I don't. I'm not. I mean, I don't know what to say. So, yeah,
We got to get you a PR person.
exactly. I need one real bad.
Yeah.
I need one real bad. The ones I've talked to in the past, though, they all want to know the answer to that question. That when I've tried to sort of hire a PR person or get a PR person interested enough in me to work on their own accord or on some sort of spec, that's usually been the first thing they've asked is like, well, what should I say it sounds like? Or what should I, like they sort of, and I'm sort of like, well, that's like kind of your job. Like,
I agree.
That's sort of what I would be ostensibly hiring you for is to do that, come up with some answers that I don't have, but anyway, I sound like I'm bitching and moaning, and maybe I am, but I'm bitching and moaning about my own lack of ability.
Listen, it is outrageously difficult to find an audience when you make music that sounds some kind of way. There's a guitar involved, and there's a bass, and there's some drums, and we got a singer. Sounds real nice.
Yeah, I don't know. It's rock music. Well, I've just been through the mill with that of like, what does it sound like? And if you're trying to explain that to sort of a layman, someone that's not sort of initiated with some degree of musical knowledge, then it's you end up being like, you'll give them a bunch of examples of like, well, it kind of sounds like, I'm influenced by like Randy Newman or Harry Nilsson, and they're like, well, I don't really know. They don't really know who that is. And you go through a litany of other artists trying to get less and less arcane, and then eventually you just have to say like, well, Garth Brooks? Yeah, it's not like that at all.
Yeah. I think that's the tagline for the episode right there.
So I tried to get something like no, I mean it's not, I never say that. It always ends up with like Elton John. Like kind of old school Elton John. It's sort of like that. It's not really like that, but it's sort of there's a piano there. You can hold on to that. Anyway.
Right.
The eternal struggle of defining your art.
What does it sound like? Well, I think it's it's easier like to bring up Jason again. Like I listened to the interview about the Cadies. It's just the Cadies are just so like they're just straight ahead, fucking balls out rock. And that's just and that's great. But it's not. And there's a lot of subtlety and a lot of good songwriting in it, but at heart, you don't have to wonder what it is, It's like that's just that's a fucking rock song, man. That's not, that's not in between. That's not living in the liminal regions or whatever, It's right in the box, which is a great thing.
And so why does the introduction of the piano complicate that to the extent that you can't make a noise with your mouth and sum up the sound?
I don't know. I mean, that's what they always said, piano-based rock or piano-based pop. I don't know. That always seemed a little ungainly and kind of an awkward explanation that left me cold and left everyone else cold, but it's accurate. Like it's not wrong. That's what it is.
Yeah. Oh man.
Again, these are my failings. My failings podcast with Seth Timbs.
They're not failings.
Sponsored by
Hardee's. Yes.
Yeah. Hey man, it's real fun catching up with you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it very much. I hope we have something that is usable with the static and whatnot. I hope that doesn't ruin everything.
It stopped at some point, so
if it does, we'll do it again. Sure,
Thank
whatever,
you.
whatever
Thank you again, Seth.
Oh, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I hope there's something of value there.
There absolutely is. So I'm going to hit end.
Big thank you to Seth for making the time.
This episode of Centre Stage was written and produced by Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. The show was recorded at Thunderlove Studio, where it was engineered by
Daphne Morris,
with help from
Penetration,
edited by
Vic Titball,
with help from
Clem Fandango.
Our theme song is Cynical by Jaguar on Mars. You can stream Jaguar on Mars wherever you stream your favorite music.
The songs you heard during this podcast were The Artist, Shamrock, Millionaire, Church Van, Destined to be Forgotten, and a sampling of Hell Glass. Be sure to check out Seth on Bandcamp. We have a link in the show notes section. You can stream both Seth Timbs and Fluid Ounces wherever you stream your favorite music. Please remember to support independent artists.
original music by Mike Pellegrino.
If you like what you've heard, please remember to subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps other people find the podcast. Thanks for listening.
Grazie.
Bailey Leaf,
Rob Janicki, Mike Pellegrino, Farina Bella,
S.W. Loudon,
Michael Janicki, Peyton Janicki.
This show's executive producer is Lulu McGillicuddy and is in the loving memory of
Lucas Thunderlow.
And now, until we meet again next time, I remain as always obediently yours.
Abandoned Albums is a production of Paw Print Media.